In February of 2013, the Los Angeles Police Department released 4 minutes of surveillance footage from the Cecil Hotel. In the video, a 21-year-old woman steps into an elevator on the 14th floor. She presses buttons, not randomly, in a sequence. She steps to the side of the doors, as if making room for someone to walk in, but no one's there. She leans out into the hallway, looks left, looks right, steps back inside. Then she presses herself into the corner of the elevator and stays there. For 15 seconds, she doesn't move. The doors stay open. 19 days later, hotel guests complained that the water tasted sweet.
Welcome back to the Eerie Stories podcast. I'm Seraphina Vale.
And I'm Elias Thorne.
Tonight, we're going to talk about a hotel that collects the dead. A young woman who followed instructions that no one can explain. And a game played in elevators that supposedly opens a door to somewhere else.
This is the story of Elisa Lam, the Cecil Hotel, and the elevator game. The Cecil Hotel sits at 640 South Main Street in downtown Los Angeles. It opened in 1927. Beaux-Arts architecture, marble floors, brass elevator doors, 700 rooms. It was supposed to be a destination for business travelers, a respectable hotel in a growing city.
It was never that.
No, it was never that. Within 4 years of opening, the first guest killed himself in his room. By the 1960s, the neighborhood had collapsed around it. Skid Row grew up to the hotel's doorstep, literally. 2 blocks in any direction, and you're in the most desperate stretch of urban America. The Cecil became a transient hotel, $14 a night, and the deaths just accumulated.
Tell them about Goldie.
Pigeon Goldie Osgood, retired telephone operator. She lived at the Cecil full-time, one of several long-term residents. She was known in the neighborhood because she fed the pigeons in Pershing Square every morning. In 1964, she was found in her room. She'd been raped, stabbed, and beaten. Her room had been ransacked. No one was ever charged.
And that's not even close to the worst of it.
In 1985, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, lived at the Cecil while he was murdering 13 people across Los Angeles. He paid $14 a night. He'd come back to the hotel after his attacks, walk through the lobby in blood-stained clothing, and throw his clothes in the dumpster out back. Other guests saw him. No one said anything. That was the kind of place the Cecil was.
6 years later, an Austrian journalist named Jack Unterweger checked into the Cecil. He was writing a story about crime in Los Angeles for an Austrian magazine. Very charming, very cultured. He was also a serial killer. He murdered 3 women during his stay, strangled them with their own bras. Same method he'd used in Austria.
So when people say the Cecil Hotel is cursed, I understand the impulse. 2 serial killers, 16 documented suicides, rapes, murders, a connection to the Black Dahlia case. It's not a hotel with a dark history. It's a dark history that happens to have a hotel attached to it.
And into this building, in January of 2013, walked a 21-year-old college student from Vancouver named Elisa Lam.
Elisa Lam was a student at the University of British Columbia. She was traveling solo down the Pacific coast, San Diego, then Los Angeles, then Santa Cruz. She kept a Tumblr blog where she wrote about depression, fashion, and the excitement of being on her own for the first time. She checked into the Cecil on January 26th.
She was staying on the budget floors. The hotel had rebranded those floors as Stay on Main, a hostel-style setup with shared dorms. Different name, same building, same elevators, same hallways.
2 days after she arrived, hotel staff moved her from the shared dorm to a private room. Her roommates had complained about her behavior. The reports don't specify what she did, just odd behavior.
I keep coming back to that. What did the roommates see that was strange enough to report, but not strange enough for anyone to call for help?
On January 31st at approximately 1 in the morning, the elevator surveillance camera on the 14th floor captured the last known footage of Elisa Lam alive. She enters the elevator wearing a red hoodie and black shorts. She's alone. She steps to the panel and begins pressing buttons, not quickly, not randomly. She presses one, pauses, presses another, pauses. She selects multiple floors, 4, 7, others. Each press is deliberate.
Then she does something that I've watched 50 times and still can't explain. She steps to the side of the doors, to the left, and stands there, as if she's making room for someone to walk in. She waits. Nobody enters.
She then leans out of the elevator and looks down the hallway, left, then right. She steps partially out of the elevator, then comes back in. She does this several times.
And then she presses herself into the back corner of the elevator, flat against the wall. And she stays there for almost 15 seconds. She doesn't move. She's hiding.
The doors remain open the entire time. That's important. She's pressed multiple buttons. The doors should close. They don't. They stay open, looking out into an empty hallway on the 14th floor of the Cecil Hotel at 1 in the morning.
She eventually steps out of the elevator. She's in the hallway now. And this is the part that people lose sleep over. Her hands. She's moving her hands in these very specific gestures, like she's counting, or signing, or following instructions. Her fingers move with precision, and her mouth is moving. She's talking to someone who isn't there.
She walks off camera. The doors finally close. The elevator begins cycling through the floors she pressed, moving from floor to floor with no one inside.
That's the last time anyone sees Elisa Lam alive.
13 days after the footage was recorded, with no sign of Lam, the LAPD released the video publicly. It went viral immediately, millions of views. The internet began dissecting every frame, but no leads came in that helped locate her.
Meanwhile, guests at the Cecil were experiencing something. The water pressure had dropped. When it did come out, it was discolored, dark, and it had a taste.
On February 19th, 19 days after the elevator footage, a maintenance worker named Santiago Lopez went to the roof to check the water tanks. The Cecil had 4 large cylindrical tanks on the roof, approximately 8 feet tall, 4 feet in diameter. They supplied the hotel's water. He opened the lid of one of the tanks. Elisa Lam's body was floating inside.
She was naked. Her clothes, the red hoodie, the shorts, her undergarments, were floating in the water around her. For 19 days, the water from this tank had been flowing through the hotel's pipes. Guests were drinking it, showering in it, brushing their teeth with it.
The guests who complained that the water tasted sweet, they were tasting decomposition.
I need a second with that.
Yeah. The autopsy found no signs of physical trauma, no drugs in her system beyond trace amounts of her prescribed medications, lamotrigine, a mood stabilizer, and 2 antidepressants, all at sub-therapeutic levels. She hadn't been taking them properly, or at all, in the days before her death.
And the cause of death?
Accidental drowning, bipolar disorder, listed as a significant contributing condition.
That's the official answer.
That's the official answer.
And the questions?
There are several. The door to the roof was alarmed. No alarm was triggered. The police searched the roof with K9 units days after she disappeared and found nothing, but her body was there the entire time. The tanks are 8 feet tall. She would have had to climb a ladder, open a 20-pound lid, and lower herself into the water. And the footage, the button presses, the hiding, the hand gestures, the conversation with no one.
None of that looks like drowning.
No, that looks like something else entirely.
This is where I come in. Because while the forensics people were analyzing water samples and autopsy reports, the internet found something, a ritual, from South Korea. It's called the elevator game, and the rules read like a set of instructions for what Elisa Lam was doing in that footage.
To be fair, and I want to be fair here, the connection is circumstantial.
To be fair, you're going to be less sure about that in about 3 minutes. The elevator game originated on Korean internet forums around 2008 to 2010. It's a ritual. You need a building with at least 10 floors and an elevator. You must be alone. And you press the buttons in a very specific sequence. 4th floor, 2nd floor, 6th floor, 2nd floor, 10th floor, 5th floor. When you reach the 5th floor, a woman may enter the elevator. Do not look at her. Do not speak to her. Do not acknowledge her in any way. Press the button for the 1st floor. If the ritual has worked, the elevator will not go down. It will go up to the 10th floor. And when those doors open, you are no longer in your building. The hallway looks the same. The carpet, the walls, the light fixtures. Everything is identical, but there's no one there. Every room is empty. Every hallway is silent, and the only light visible through the windows is a red cross glowing in the distance. You are in the other world.
And how do you get back?
You get back in the same elevator, press the same sequence, and if you followed every rule, if you didn't look at her, didn't speak to her, didn't try to leave the building, the elevator takes you home. If you broke a rule, you don't come back.
Seraphina, I need to ask the obvious question. This is a creepypasta. This is an internet horror story. There's no evidence that Elisa Lam had ever heard of the elevator game.
You're right. There's no evidence. But Elias? She pressed buttons in a sequence. She stepped aside for someone who wasn't there. She appeared to follow instructions. She was found in a place that should have been inaccessible, and the elevator doors stayed open for 4 minutes, which the manufacturer says shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
The connection might be coincidence, but the people who built this ritual, the original Korean posters, they built it years before Elisa Lam ever walked into the Cecil Hotel. They described a game played in elevators, in tall buildings, with specific button sequences. And the only famous footage of someone actually behaving that way in an elevator, pressing buttons in a sequence, interacting with something invisible, hiding from something in the hallway, is the footage of a woman who ended up dead in a place she shouldn't have been able to reach.
I don't have a rebuttal for that. I have an explanation: bipolar psychosis, manic episode, erratic behavior, but I don't have a rebuttal for the visual parallel. It's striking.
It's more than striking, Elias. It's the thing you can't unsee.
So here's where I land on this, and I want to be honest, because this is a case where being honest means sitting in discomfort. The most likely explanation is that Elisa Lam experienced a severe bipolar episode, possibly psychotic. She'd stopped taking her medication. She was alone in an unfamiliar city, in a hotel with a documented history of exacerbating mental health crises. She accessed the roof, probably through the fire escape, which would bypass the alarm. She climbed the tank, she got in the water, and she couldn't get out.
And the K9 units that searched the roof and didn't find her?
The tanks have lids. If the lid was mostly closed, the dogs might not have alerted. It's not satisfying, but it's possible.
And the elevator footage?
Consistent with psychosis, pressing buttons compulsively, talking to people who aren't there, paranoid behavior, the hiding, the checking the hallway. It all fits.
It all fits. And yet, the Cecil Hotel opened in 1927. In the 96 years since, it has hosted 2 serial killers, at least 16 suicides, multiple murders, and the unexplained death of a 21-year-old tourist. At some point, the question stops being what happened to Elisa Lam and starts being, what is it about this building?
I don't have an answer for that either.
There's a concept in Celtic tradition called a thin place, a location where the boundary between this world and the next is narrower than it should be. Churches are built on them, temples, burial mounds. The feeling you get in certain rooms, in certain buildings. The feeling that something is close, something is watching, something is almost here. That's the thin place. The Cecil Hotel is a thin place, and Elisa Lam walked into it during the most vulnerable moment of her life, pressed the buttons in the elevator, and crossed a threshold that the rest of us can only watch on a 4-minute video.
The footage is still on YouTube. It's been viewed millions of times, and every person who watches it has the same thought.
She knew the combination.
She pressed those buttons like she knew exactly what she was doing. That one stays with you.
Yeah, it does.
If you're listening to this late at night, maybe take a moment before you go to sleep. Let this one settle.
And if you're in a hotel tonight, maybe take the stairs. If the Eerie Stories podcast has become part of your routine, subscribe. It helps others find these stories.
We'll see you next time.
Stay close to the light.